I would compare my experience with the community here to when I worked for my uncles selling ice cream. I worked at a time in a Velvet Freeze, and everyone came in and if they weren't happy when they came in, they were happy when they left. And that's what it's like driving around Innsbruck and talking to everyone. They're just happy. They're happy to be here. Innsbruck came into existence as a vision of my father, Ed Boyce, and his business partner, Warren Wabi, Sr., in 1971. But you have to go further back than that.
He got the idea of the chalet in Colorado. Ed was going to college at Regis College. Ed was a ski bum, and to raise money for his inhabits, whatever they were, was printing the T-shirts, USA Drinking Team, and he would sell those throughout college, and he actually contracted with Playboy magazine and marketed those T-shirts in Playboy, and that's what created the seed money.
For a development called Chalet Ridge that was down in Pacific, Missouri in 1964. They had 15 A-frame chalets my father built with his uncle, Ray Valentine.
My father ran the Boyd's clothing store in Clayton back in the 60s, and he used to sell clothing to Ed Boyce Sr. And that was the relationship and how I got to know Ed. So Ed was in need of somebody with a strong sales background. So Dad joined Ed. It would probably have been in about 1967.
A development called Aspenhof. That subdivision still exists. It's a wonderful place.
Aspenhof was built about 7 miles south of Warrenton, Missouri, just a little farther down I-70, and that development was completed in 1969. In the meantime, Dad had assembled a piece of property off of Highway U, which is where Innsbruck was intended to be, and in the meantime, ironically, my mother was thumbing through the Post-Dispatch.
June Wabi found an ad for land for sale 5 miles south of Wright City.
For 1,265 acres, which is where the original farmhouse is. So with the thought of that being about 20 minutes closer to St. Louis and the drive time being under an hour,
that became Innsbruck. The original purchase was 350 acres at an average of one chalet for every 3 acres, and we were going to be done by 1977. That was the master plan. So the vision in 1971 was to have these little cottage A-frames on a couple 3 acres beside a lake, in the woods, very private, very rustic. And we've kept that vision today. We still offer that product, along with many others. It used to be just typically just a weekend with a family to come out from the St. Louis area. Those patterns have changed over the years. People are spending more time than ever using Innsbruck, using its amenities, spending time with their family, spending time with their friends.
Today we've got 7,400 platted acres on the map, but we own and control about 9,500 acres.
So this is Lake Lucerne behind us. This was the first lake. And when the Fagan family, who bought the first chalet, which was chalet number 3, this was a cornfield still. This lake was just barely under construction from what I recall.
Mr. Fagan gave us a cash deposit to start construction, which was some of the seed money to build his building, and at the time he felt pretty confident that he was making the right decision, and it certainly turned out to be that.
I'd probably helped put gas in the one and only vehicle we owned. The original purpose of Innsbruck is still its purpose today. It's a refuge from the daily grind. It's a place for family and friends to commune in a very natural environment, whether it's organized events or just peaceful walks through the countryside.
We like to think that when you come through the gate, you leave your problems there and the blood pressure drops about 10 points.
So my father's actual career at the time was in insurance. He was in the family insurance business. And so he felt the need. He always felt it was important to be outside. He firmly believed in the healing nature of being outside in the woods, spending time, whether solitary or with family.
Innsbruck is not just a place, it's not bricks and mortar, it's an experience, it's an environment, it's a lifestyle.
Living in harmony with nature has always been at our core. One of the unique features of the A-frame chalet is that they're on piers, and so they have minimal impact on the forest and have a very small footprint. And that's why when you drive through here in the summer, you'd never guess that there are thousands of beautiful homes, beautiful A-frame chalets hidden in these Innsbruck forest.
When we have individuals coming out to look at Innsbruck for the first time, we're more into the introducing the experience of Innsbruck, because if you're not interested in the lifestyle and doesn't capture you, the individual dwellings themselves, that's kind of secondary to the whole concept of Innsbruck. It's somewhat of an all-inclusive concept. It's a place that brings families together. It's very rewarding when you see kids that get away from computers. I'm out here to decompress and spend quality time. You don't see a TV in every unit. You don't have the computers out here necessarily. So you're coming out to be a kid, skip rocks in a creek, walk a trail, spend more time having a meal together in this fast-paced lifestyle everybody's in today. So it's what we're trying to provide is quality time, family time.
I continuously get notes, letters, emails from families saying that Innsbruck is the most important part of their lives. That is what makes them a strong family. If we can continue to do that, we will continue to be successful.
I feel that we change a lot of families' lives with Innsbruck and offering this environment and a place that people can come and grow to love it for the same reasons that I have.
They were born here, they were raised here, they grew up as two young men, and their fathers made them work very hard, and they did every job there was. And Ed, and while I did not know Chip's father, you could see that they put an emphasis on learning every aspect, whether it was real estate, shoveling dirt, working in the HOA, putting in pipes, whatever it was. They learn, they know where every single lot is, every pipe, every dam.
So I always felt our family was very, very fortunate. Innsbruck started when I was 6 years old, and I was the kid who always wanted to ride with Dad on the weekends as he was coming out to work. He'd begin work that morning, and I would just take off into the woods and find projects to do, explore, climb trees, hang out in the creeks, build bonfires. It was a wonderful, wonderful childhood.
There were experiences in every job, whether it was security or working on the creation of the front nine of the golf course, or I can remember when we built the conference center, we didn't have a sprinkler system in case there was a fire. So I was actually, one of my jobs was to sleep in the Aspen Center, the lodge here overnight, to make sure that if something happened, there was somebody to call. And at that time I thought, wow, whose parents would put them in a building without a sprinkler system to wake up in case there's a fire? So
one of my first jobs, Dad would give me a burlap sack and tell me just go walk the roads and pick up trash.
So going a little bit back in time, when Aspenhof started and my father joined Ed, we found that we used to use the old farmhouses. It used to be our weekend place, and the Boyces and Wobbies would spend weekends together quite a bit. So there was a good working relationship and bond between the founders, and it really has blossomed into a very good working relationship with Charlie and myself as second generation. At the same time, we've had moments that you would laugh together, you would cry together, and we'd play pranks on each other.
Chip Wobby, growing up knowing Chip, was always an adventure, if not a bit mischievous at times. Chip used to use me to test the ice on the creeks if it was solid enough.
Our fathers would always provide us with summer jobs, and I'm convinced it was to keep us out of trouble and keep us busy. So as a child growing up, I mean, we had various jobs throughout the summer, whether it was shoveling manure at the stables or delivering sand to beaches, just a whole array of jobs. So it kind of grew up through the development and had a pretty good understanding by the time I was working full-time, the different aspects and income centers and how it worked, and worked in every division other than probably food preparation, which is probably beneficial to everybody since I'm not a great cook. Well, probably the least favorite job was when we were provided a Jeep for the entire summer, and our job was to build a beach for a property owner that owned, it was number 379. And so neither one of us were actually old enough to drive, but the Jeep was delivered up to the job site, and then a dump truck would dump the sand, and then we would shovel the sand into the Jeep, drive it down the hill, and deliver it to the beach. And that was, for the two of us, basically a full summer job.
I started my career here when I was about 6 years old, and it was my summer job during high school. So I then started my professional career in 1991. Chip Wobby was already here, and it was like a family reunion. Here's the guy that I worked with since we were kids, as teenagers, and now here we are starting our professional careers at Innsbruck, working for the first generation leadership. Working at that time for Ed Boyce, my dad, and Les Beakley. Warren Sr. had since passed away. As our responsibilities grew, it came time to transition from first generation to second generation. And that was carefully thought through over a period of probably 10 years until now. Chip and I are in control of the organization. We are in charge of Innsbruck.
Back then, it was the wild, wild west. When you came to Innsbruck, there were no security forces, there was no golf course, there was none of that. In fact, Ed Boyce's term for it was, there is no organized joy here. Very different today. There's clubs, there's committees, there's all kinds of things. But back then, the whole idea of the place was no organized joy. You came down here, you had a cabin in the woods. If you wanted to socialize, you went to the beach. Sonova Beach was the mecca of all activity and parties and everything else. Fireworks too. Fireworks run the dam down there. But it was really what you wanted to make of it. There was, you unlocked the key in the gate, you came in, you locked it behind you, and you were in this world away from everything else. And you made of it what you will. Some people wanted to just spend their time in seclusion down here, and other people wanted to come down and make it a real vacation retreat and place to party and socialize and everything else. And it is the magic of Innsbruck, is it can be all of those things.
Well, back in the day, we were all kind of jack of all trades. So 1 week would be in the services division, going back and fixing stuff. The next week we'd be blowing up dynamite, putting our main line, septic lines in, and the power lines. Eventually, I ran into the construction division. I pretty much ran one of the construction crews building the A-frame chalets.
At the time, I don't know if anybody could tell how far this place was going to grow. At that time, we were building chalets, and they were small compared to what we're doing these days. And I believe, I'm just guessing here at the year, but probably 1978, I think we built 72 chalets. which isn't a lot to knock out in a year's time. But that's what we did. But then Warren had a vision about building custom homes, so he started the custom homes division, which I was just a natural to work with him on that because I was running all the other construction. And then once Warren got that moving and taking off, then Innsbruck took it over and it just kept growing.
Les Beakley at the time was a vice president and in charge of operations, so he oversaw the daily efforts that were important in partnership also with Chip Wabi's brother, Steve Wabi, who was a member of our team for his career.
Funny story I remember with Ed and my father that after. Do you recall when our pops were driving around and it was after the Memorial Day party and we were building the one of the first beaches on Lake Lucerne, and your dad was driving and they had just left the farmhouse area and both had a cold beer in their hand, and your dad said, well, let's pull down through here and take a look at the progress on the beach, and hit a ditch, and Dad spilt his beer all over his lap and said,
Well, that's how it became Sonova Beach.
Sonova Beach, that's right. I don't think that's how all the beaches got their names.
No. My father was iconic in many ways, not just as a founder, but in fashion. He was notorious for wearing really short shorts, tall socks, driving around all hours of the day and night, windshield down, in his Jeep. He loved people. He was a people person. He loved to sit and chat. He started a tradition at our anniversary parties where our family mans the beer truck just so we can talk to everyone.
Are we going to the farmhouse? Let's go to the farmhouse.
Can we sing karaoke on the way?
Absolutely. You don't have much of a voice, but that's all right. I can carry you.
Absolutely. You have for 50 years.
There you go. There you go.
So we are gonna head over to the original entrance, which was the main drag for everything from about 1971 to 1980. And I think that's the original Innsbruck sign that Mike Dahl carved out, isn't it?
I think it is. I think there's a lot of Mike Dahl still present.
So this gatehouse wasn't here. We had an aluminum gate. Ricky, how are you?
Good, how are you guys?
Good morning.
Wonderful. So the original entrance was just one gate with a chain and a lock and a key, and the owners had a key to let themselves in or out.
Yeah.
And if you showed up, without a key, there was a good chance any flat rock around here would have a key hidden under it. Relax, slow down, 23 miles an hour.
That was your dad that came up with that, wasn't it? 17 and a half and 23 miles an hour.
Yes, it was.
Did he ever do 17 and a half or 23?
Only if he was slowing down. Yeah, he said, if it was 15 and 20, you'd never notice.
Right.
And then we'd have an old stake truck, flatbed truck with a movie screen. Showing the popular movies of the day. I remember Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, E.T., Jurassic Park. We used to have a lot of barrel races over here in the outdoor riding ring. In the early 70s, we put in 3 tennis courts. And it had a telephone with an attendant because there was so much demand for tennis back then. And then on our right, Chip's dad wanted Innsbruck to build a golf course. My dad didn't golf, but he played hockey, so he grabbed a dozer and made a little skating pond. And we'd have pond hockey games.
It's kind of nice to see that property owners still enjoy the beaches, even though we have the pool. The beaches are pretty well attended on weekends. something they don't have in their backyard at home. Why was it your dad used to drive around at night with no headlights?
He did like driving around with his lights off in that open top Jeep. I think he liked to sneak up on skinny dippers. One of whom was my cousin, a bunch of his high school buddies. I don't know if that's still popular.
I haven't lately, have you? Haven't seen you.
No comment. So this is where it all began. This is the original farmhouse. The famous mulberry tree.
You know, that thing never thrived as much as when we tried to blow it up with dynamite.
Yeah, Dad thought it was in the way and it just kept on growing. Still bears fruit every summer.
So what do you think our dads talked about sitting out here on the front porch back in the day?
I'm pretty sure it was what great sons they had.
I would second that. You think any big decisions were made here?
I think they did a lot of strategic planning right
Think it was
here.
good decisions.
By and large, it was. They were trailblazers.
What do you think we should talk about sitting here?
How good our sons are.
All right.
And our daughters.
That's right. That's right. There were a lot of great memories here. I mean, I learned how to drive a car out around that circle. I remember Dad bought a 1968 Chevy Impala, and I learned how to drive. I went around the circle probably 150 times when I got that car. Of course, I was 15. Not that we would allow underage driving today, but it sure seemed fun at the time.
Oh, I couldn't wait to get out here to drive the Jeeps. They didn't even have, if they had a key or a screwdriver and take up off the hill and learn how to drive a stick shift.
I don't think I ever told your dad that the old Red Willie's Jeep that went to the
Historical Society.
Yeah, Historical
The
Society.
Transportation Museum.
I would sneak that out and drive that thing all around the farmhouse when he wasn't here. You think he'd be pissed?
Yeah,
That's why I never told him.
good call.
Yeah,
We were pretty good at not getting caught.
you're right. You're right. Good times.
Good. It was good times. It is good times.
It is. It
Continues
is.
to be today. It will be for the next generations also. I think both our dads really like puns. I'm not sure which one coined the term, but this is the official scale for our fishing tournaments every year and has been since the 70s. Right here was a mailbox, and that had the one company phone in it, and it was a 12-party line, 10-party line.
Yeah, kind of like Green Acres, but you didn't have to climb the pole.
Exactly. But there's a bottle of whiskey in there
There
too.
could have been. Helped conversations. You remember this was the original office down here when we first bought the track, and the farmhouse was in horrible shape. And this was the headquarters of Innsbruck, operating the sales department. We had our services division, maintenance staff, and as you can see, you might think it was a small staff, but it just held a lot more people than it would appear to. And then we made some improvements to the old farmhouse, which is where the Boyces and Wobbies used to spend a lot of their summers. It kind of turned out to be offices, plus the upstairs had some bedrooms, so it was more of our weekend retreat in the early years. And this is the area we would have our property owner Memorial Day party. We would have, back in the day, you could have a couple hundred people here. We would have Bill Monty, a property owner, play the banjo. We'd have draft beer, and everybody brought their own lawn chair down.
Spread beneath the mulberry tree were the big utility spools, and they'd flip them on the side, and those would be the tables. And then I certainly remember crawling into one, and Chip would push me, and I'd be like in a dryer rolling down the hill.
Which is fortunate for you that it's pretty level around here. So I don't know if did you ever work security back in the day?
Oh yeah, I did.
So You remember having to go into that front security room in the farmhouse at night when the lightning would go off?
Look for the blinking lights.
Set every alarm off. You had to go in there and push a couple hundred buttons, and for every light that didn't reset, you had to get in the vehicle, go up and check the building. And on a stormy night, you never got any sleep.
No, and there's a good chance that vehicle was a late 60s, early 70s Jeep, may or may not have had a windshield, certainly didn't have doors or a top.
I don't even know if the lights work.
Probably not.
Yeah. Vehicles of Innsbruck. So Jeeps are very popular, and this all started back in day one. That's how we used to survey the property, and to this day, that's the way a lot of us get around, and takes us to the back parts of the property. But it's that sense of being out in open air and in this environment.
So we have been able to keep that lifestyle very much alive as well with our annual Jeep safaris. We have areas where people can go explore where we haven't yet developed. You're outdoors, enjoying the fresh air, having fun.
As fun as developing's been out here, it wasn't always so easy. Many will recall back in the 1980s when interest rates peaked and reached 18%.
So I remember very clearly sitting at our dining room table and my father saying that the bank had called our loan.
I think at one point Innsbruck actually offered to do their own financing for some of the building out here.
And there were a number of staff out here that were taking pay cuts, and the officers of the company weren't accepting any money at all and doing what they needed to do to make ends meet.
The OPEC oil crisis, people couldn't get gasoline to drive out to Innsbruck, so we bought a bus. And we would leave from Clayton, Missouri, and then go out to West County Mall, then out to Chesterfield, bring people out on Saturday morning, and then take them home either Saturday night or Sunday morning. So you get creative during those times.
We were doing this to make sure that we kept our business intact because the owners love it so much. We love what we do. And it really made us grow together with our owners.
As I sit here today, we're in the middle of a pandemic. People started coming out here at spring break, March 2020, and they're still out here.
Our oldest son came down from Chicago as soon as Chicago was shutting down. He's like, I can't stay in Chicago with everything being shut down. Can I come and stay at Innsbruck? So he came and he was with us for 7 weeks the first time, and then about 3 the second time. So
And now he's back again.
And now he's back again.
We had to get creative. What activities can we do? And so this year we've added our first full moonlight 5-mile, 10-mile run where everyone wore headlamps on a Saturday night in August with a full moon. We're having our first half marathon in November, which will be brutal and fun for those that can handle the hills out here. We have, instead of a triathlon, we have what's going to be called True Grit, and we'll have kayaks and gravel biking and trail running. All things that we can do during a pandemic that we hadn't held before. So we grew in different phases. So you've got the original startup phase.
From 1970 to 1980, it was strictly chalet construction. In 1980, when we started the estate side of the development,
We built a conference center. We built a golf course. We built condominiums. We started building residential homes because the people who had their A-frame chalet wanted to live out here full time. Into the 1990s, mostly with the leadership of Les Beakley, we started our most ambitious project, which is Alpine Lake, which is our largest lake today. So as our community continued to grow, it grew through families inviting other families, inviting other friends, and it just had a dynamic growth that it just made it more and more popular for people to come out. And we started noticing that people enjoyed being out here, but they also wanted to start to interact with the community on a greater level. And our activities just continued to expand. And I think that really helped us be a larger family and a larger community. And those activities started with an annual anniversary party, sailboat regattas, watermelon hunts inside the lakes, tennis tournaments, and the list continues to grow today, where every weekend there are multiple activities, so people have a chance to get out and interact with other members of the community.
You'd have to picture when we started back in the early 70s, and I started in 77, we were just a group of people with one thought of building chalets. We drove around in old Army work Jeeps. We had Willys pickup trucks, Wagoneers for the display people to drive people around in. And the biggest thing was lakes and horses. And that was great. And then luckily Ed had a lot of foresight, Ed and Warren, and then Chip and Charlie came along and expanded on that. And the place just kept growing and growing. And I guess the economy and everything dictated which direction to head with more permanent residents. And now we've taken the Aspen Center here and updated it. We're adding on right now. The golf clubhouse was updated within the last couple of years. The Shred Creek Commons pool area, that's been a fantastic addition. I mean, that has to draw a lot of people in. It's constantly having a lot of people down there.
Do you recall when your father, Les, and I and ourselves were sitting in the lounge chairs here, visualizing what this would look like?
Absolutely.
Did it turn out to be what you thought it would be?
It exceeded my expectations.
Did it?
It did.
That's awesome.
You?
Yeah, I think it turned out great. And that's what I love about being out here is being a visionary and taking nothing and turning it into something.
Well, as we've said, the best is yet to come. Most developments look their best and shiniest year one. Here we are at year 50, and I think this is the best we've been.
Just keeps getting better.
Just keep raising the bar.
In the original years of developing Innsbruck, it was a much different process. We would take a ridge cap and we run a road down it, and lot lines would fall where they may. We took a different approach as of about 15 years ago. We took a 15, 20-year look out into the future and put together a master plan with an organization out of Asheville, North Carolina, Otter and Arrow. They were landscape developers, and we were very interested in making sure we were working with the ground that existed in topography. And in doing that, it gave us a much better perspective on what our future cost would be. Gave us a handle on what our density would be, and staying in tune with our plan to make the development an average of 3 acres per lot helped us with that determination on where we were going to put lakes, where we're going to do certain types of development.
I could name 500 things that I love about Innsbruck, but I would say most important was the fact that the families together, the Wobbies, the Boyces, and that they were in one while they're different men. They offer such diversity for a community of this size that I don't know of one in the world that is like this one. And Kent and I have traveled, with me managing multiple facilities and dealing with different owners. I've never met anybody like these two. Ever.
Innsbruck can be a real retreat, but if you want the social life, you used to have to go to a beach. That was about the only place where there wasn't thick forest and where you could actually meet somebody if it wasn't for the annual Labor Day or Memorial Day party. So the beaches have always been the hub of our social existence. First Sonova Beach, later on Cedar Pass Beach over in Wanderfern Lake. Very welcoming atmosphere. We have met dozens and dozens of dear friends over the years from that. And if you wanted to socialize, if you want to stay in the woods, you stay in the woods. If you want to socialize, you go to the beach. And whoever else shows up at the beach, there we are. And some days it's 50 of us on the beach together, and some days it's just a couple of us. But everyone knows that's where you go. And from that has developed lots of other activities, and and beach Olympic games and pig roasts and kayak races and all kinds of other things as well.
The regattas.
Yeah.
Regattas for the major holidays.
We have a group that gets together most Friday evenings and goes to the clubhouse. They have live music a lot of times on Friday evenings, which is fun. Involved in a Saturday morning tennis group, which is kind of come when you want to, but if you're involved in something else, you go do that. It's not like you're committed to doing that. So it's a fun atmosphere to play tennis in, and pickleball is kind of the same way. I'm just kind of getting into pickleball, but it's the same kind of thing. You could play as much as you want to or as little.
I think that people are looking for a community spirit, and I think with the activities we have in place, with the concerts, the lakes too, the golf and the tennis and everything else, it's all part of being an Innsbruck owner. The different clubs that get together on a regular basis, I think those are all draws to the community, and I think to each and every one, in the same respect, there are a lot of people who come out here to hide. They don't want to be part of any of that hubbub, and that's fine. They have both sides of the coin there.
Well, I wish I could say it was me, but it's Innsbruck. I mean, that's why I moved out here. When you come into Innsbruck, you can just feel your blood pressure going down.
We've met just wonderful, really interesting people, and to see their passions. Remember playing golf one day and seeing this guy drive around in a golf cart, and he was going to all the Purple Martin homes. And I'm like, well, what is this? And he's like, yeah, I just maintain them. It's what I do. It's my passion. And then in the Innsbruck newsletter, every spring he gives an egg update on how many Purple Martin eggs. I'm like, where do you find that? And it's all that's one example of all the different volunteerisms that are out here, that people bring their passions to make Innsbruck better. And that is so rare to find in any community, but people come here and do it.
So I was going to ask if the Stables has been here for the last 50 years, since Innsbruck's getting ready to celebrate their big 50-year anniversary.
So the stables have been here since day one. We had one original barn, which is the old red barn there, and it was run by Red and Gladys Plagenberg. We've always had boarders. The whole equine community has been with us since day one. It's still very important, and now we're here with Kat, who's half of the Kat and Aaron team, who are running it for us now, 50 years later.
One of the things that we're doing with the Red Barn is we're hoping to open it up possibly by the end of this year, beginning of next year, as a tour barn, gift shop. So we're going to bring the life back to the Red Barn that was originally here 50 years ago. People coming in and out, being able to see the horses, all the little petting zoo animals, book themselves a ride, lessons, any other services we offer. We'll have a gift shop where they can come buy some things for their trail ride, for their weekend.
So I was thinking about this. We're in the original barn, and this is where the original hay rides were out of, that we used to haul behind Jeeps through the pastures, and we did trail rides. And we had the Plagenbergs were the first caretakers for the horses. They lived here in a little trailer. And then we had Rich Avery lived here.
I used to have the old trailer over where the Stanley and Green stables were, and I was going up to knock on the door, and I saw this big German Shepherd that just had pups, and I heard the growl, and I thought, what bad could happen? And then as I got closer to knock on the door, that dog came at me. I turned around and ran. It bit me twice on the back of the leg, and outside of the horse stepping on my foot in flip-flops, these were very memorable experiences and learning experiences. So, there's a lot of history here.
Well, one day I got a call from Charlie Boyce, and he said, Bill, you're probably more familiar with Alpine Lake than anyone else. You swim it up and down all the time. How would you like to be involved with an event that's going to be out there? And I immediately said yes, not for the swimming, but also for the cause, and also for just to do something great for Innsbruck. So it turned out to be Swim Across America, which is a national charity organization that raises money for cutting-edge cancer research. And in this case, the beneficiary was going to be Siteman's Cancer Center. It's become a regular event where we raise over $200,000 a year here at the swim. It's grown every year. And it's just been a wonderful event. And the greatest thing about it is I started off getting involved with it. I immediately dragged Denise into it. She became head of volunteers, and so many other people have stepped up and volunteered and wanted to get involved. The Innsbruck community has just been amazing in supporting it. On the event day, we have 70, 80, 90 volunteers, maybe over 100, I don't know. A lot of them are Innsbruck people. We've got people driving people to the site on golf carts. It's a magnificent thing to see. So having something like that down here, there's so many great recreational things down here, but to do something like this for a cause and be part of a national organization and really put Innsbruck on the map in that regard is wonderful. And it has. People come from all over the country for this event, and they are amazed by Innsbruck. They say there's nothing like it. I will tell the story out of school that the CEO of Swim Across America, he hasn't missed coming to Innsbruck once. He can't go to every event because a lot of them overlap. He always seems to make it to here. He loves it here, and so does everyone else who's visited it.
And what started as just a grassroots effort, because we'd never been to one of the Swim Across America events, and we were like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Everybody stepped up and was like, what can we do? How can we help? What do you think? Giving us ideas and doing everything, like Bill said, from shuttling the athletes to putting people up in their homes. We typically host 4 or 5 Olympians too. They come in from all over the country to support the swim. So people have loaned their houses, and we've had a big fundraiser the night before. We've had a dinner down at the clubhouse. It's just remarkable how people have taken it as theirs, and we love that, and we just love the involvement. And just last night we got a call from a couple of people who have some great ideas. So it continues year round. It's not just a one day event.
Probably the most amazing thing is the people who have opened up their homes. We've had college teams come down, and we've broken them up among 6 or 8 different chalets, and people have opened their homes to college kids over for the night before the event, which is just beyond the call of duty. But everyone who's done it has said, I want to do it again next year. They enjoyed the experience.
We even
so much.
strong-armed one bachelor. I said, I'm going to take you out of your comfort zone. He's like, ooh. But he loves it.
And has done it every year since.
He takes some golfing, and
yeah.
So it's fun.
If you were too good to pick up trash, you were too good to work at Innsbruck. I've been a janitor my whole career. It was a favorite quote of my father's. We still use it today. It's not one of the lucky ones.
The reason I've been here for so long, I think that it's a very unique environment to work in. I think the ability to show people the many facilities that Innsbruck has to offer and the amenities and way of life is very rewarding to me. I still have people today come up to me and tell me, we did this 20 years ago, it's the best thing we ever did. And it just gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling when they say that. And at the same time, a little pat on the back. And that's why we keep doing it.
We have a great staff at Innsbruck, and the tenure of our staff, there's quite a bit of longevity. In fact, Danny Meisner, who's the head of our construction department, builds all the custom homes, came in and applied for a job with my brother Steve, who at the time was the engineer for Innsbruck.
That was a big time. I mean, I'd worked other places, but I was 16, so I just worked, for neighbors and baling hay and doing things like that on farms. So when I came out here, I'm 16 years old, and I felt like I'm walking the gauntlet. I'm walking to the farmhouse, and all the people that were working here at the time. I remember the one guy had tattoos up his arms and a ponytail, and here's a 16-year-old kid got to walk through these old people who were probably in their 20s. And then Steve Wabi, who hired me, asked me a few basic questions, and then he turned and looked at the clock on the farmhouse wall and said, "Can you start in 10 minutes?" I've been here ever since.
We have about 85 full-time employees, but that can ramp up to about 200 when we're in peak season. And it really is a village. Everything from providing utilities, providing events, hospitality, golf, real estate, construction, all these moving parts come together, and I'm very proud of the team that we've had, and I think that the team we have today is the best one that we've ever had.
My brother still owns the original chalet, number 93. He's still here. So my brother John has a place, and we are on our second place of our own. First a chalet, and now we're in a cottage.
Being an owner, in the sense that I was doing everything that I have fond memories of as growing up as a kid here, and in turn my children are going through that now, and now I have grandchildren. So for us, we're in second generation ownership, but we've been here long enough that we're dealing with third generation ownership of property owners. So that says something about the development.
These are people that I've known since I was a kid, that Chip has known since we were kids. And to see them now, the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren that are out here, it's just a joy I can't describe.
Well, I have been here so long now, I'm actually dealing with grandsons and nieces and nephews of original owners that purchased back in the late 70s and early 80s, and now their grandchildren are in a position to come out and be part of Innsbruck. So we get together and they tell me stories about how they used to spend time in Lake St. Gallen or Lake Innsbruck and the memories they had. And again, it just makes you feel good about bringing it back in, bringing it back to the fold.
One of the most important traditions, I believe, is our annual Independence Day fireworks display. Fireworks bring something to a community that not many other activities can do. And what we've seen is this tradition for a fireworks display that may last 20, 25 minutes. It's the most important weekend at Innsbruck. If someone's going to use Innsbruck of any time of the year, this is when they come out. They invite their family, they invite their friends, and that's when a community really gets to celebrate together. And it's subtle, but it's important. And you have multi-generations that are all looking up at this tapestry in the sky. And at that point, the communities really come together as one. My family lived in University City, and we used to walk up to Washington University and watch them do a fireworks show inside Francis Field. Well, my father was always a fireworks enthusiast. He's the guy in the neighborhood that always had the backyard show with bottle rockets and smoke bombs. So we walked up to Francis Field, and we got there long before it started, and he grabbed me by the hand. He said, "We're going to go meet these people." We walked past security. He said, "Don't worry, I'm with them." And we walked up, and that's how we met the Walker family, who was the premier fireworks display company in the Midwest at the time. And that started a long tradition. We still use the Walker family today of shooting off fireworks. So they brought the first fireworks show to Innsbruck. This was in 1975, I believe, and it was on the dam of Lake Lucerne. And back then, our director of golf, Mark Waltman, would wear about 4 layers of clothes and light each shell by hand. And as kids, we were runners, and we would go and we'd drop them in the tubes. It's dangerous. We don't do that anymore. But we were the runners. We'd go from the pickup truck that was covered with a canvas, run, toss them in the tubes. Mark would light them, and up they would go. And my dad was the orchestrator. And so he would say, "Fire 1, wait, fire 2. The show today is one of the largest in the Midwest. It is choreographed by a 5th generation manufacturer, firework display choreographer based out of Barcelona, Spain, who has done 2 Olympic opening and closing ceremonies. It is choreographed to a professionally mixed soundtrack. It is all ignited electronically, run by computers, professional sound system to a magnitude of 10,000 people. a show that would normally be in a municipality before 1 million people. Privately funded, invitation only for the Innsbruck community.
Everybody has a story about Innsbruck, and I have so many, it would take you 2 hours to tell all the stories, but I'll start with my favorite Ed story. So I had just started work, and Ed came up and introduced himself to me, and he says, "You want to take a ride?" And I had on a dress and high heel shoes, and he pulls up in a white Jeep, and I have on a shorter dress, and I have to get into the Jeep. So I said, "Ed, you need to look the other way." He says, "No, I'm not going to look the other way." So I jump up in the Jeep, I throw my dress in between my legs, and he guns out as I'm flying through the Jeep. I'm thinking, oh my God, where is he taking me? So needless to say, he wanted to take me to all the places that I would never have gone and never had seen. And that was an hour and a half in my dress, hair blown. I had a meeting that afternoon, and Ed thought it was the funniest thing in the whole world that he could take me around in a dress and high heel shoes. And as I got out of the Jeep, he looks over at me and goes, "Next time we'll get you to wear pants and a long sleeve shirt." He said, "We dress more casual here."
Everybody has a story about Ed.
Lots.
In 1983, there was an escaped convict in this area named Michael Jackson. And there was a bit of paranoia going on. No one knew where he was, but they knew he was in the right city area. So Ed and I would go water skiing 3-4 times a year, usually to Lake Kincaid, Lake of the Ozarks, or something like that. Well, this one particular day, he said, come on in the back. And we went in the back and we looked at the big board that showed the occupancy down here. And we said, well, there's nobody around Lake Wanderfern today. Let's skip the hour and a half drive and let's just water ski here. So we put the boat on Lake Wanderfern, and we were water skiing up and down the lake. And then we look over on one of the beaches, and there's a security car sitting there looking at us. So Ed picks up the radio and calls the security car, and they're saying, "Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing out there?" He said, "Well, we're out here patrolling, looking for Michael Jackson. We heard it might be in the area here, and we're just making sure it's out here." "Well, are you okay?" He said, "Oh yeah, we've got a gun out here. We're good. We got a rifle out here in case we need it. We just thought we'd take a little water skiing to take a little break." Ed was always trying to outfox his own security guards, and he was an expert at it. We did it on many occasions. That's just one of them.
Good, I can go back to a story at Aspenhof when EJ and myself went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show on University City, and we pulled out to the gate at Aspenhof, and neither one of us had a key. So we were sitting outside the gate in the car, and both fell asleep, and property owner came in and came up and knocked on the door and asked what we were doing there on the window, and we said, EJ said, "Well, I'm Ed Boyce," and I said, "Well, I'm Warren Wabi." And he goes, "You're not Ed Boyce or Warren Wabi. I know Ed Boyce and Warren Wabi." So we showed him our driver's licenses, and he goes, "I'll be a son of a gun. You're Ed Boyce and Warren Wabi. You open the gate for us."
This is Catfish Pond. This has got a good story behind it. What was that guy driving? A Volvo?
Yeah, I came around the corner one day, and there was a Volvo that was half in the water and half out. And gentleman's wife was pacing up and down the dam crying, and I stopped to ask if I could help him in any way, and he was sitting through the sunroof of the Volvo fishing and drinking a Budweiser.
I think he drank a couple of them.
Yeah, he did. And asked him if I could help, and he said no, he already called the tow truck, and he said tow truck was on the way, and I said, "I think your wife's pretty upset." And he had stated that he just bought that car for her a couple days ago, had 384 miles on it, and there's nothing he could do about it, so he's going to make the best of it and fish out of the sunroof.
So we've had a history of public figures who have stayed at Innsbruck, have had places at Innsbruck. So that comes from a spectrum of business persons, political persons, sports celebrities, music celebrities, have all found value in spending time in Innsbruck, where they can just hang out, be normal, enjoy all the amenities that we have to offer, and the privacy.
Well, I'm sure somebody already mentioned Al Gore, and I'm sure there have been others that have snuck through the gate that we're not aware of. But I was part of one that the famous country singer that I won't name actually came out and spent a weekend with us while he was in town doing a concert. And it was hush hush. Nobody was to know that he was out here. I was contacted, met him at the airport, brought him out here, set him up for the weekend, and made sure that he got back to the concert in time. And of course, it was Entourage at the time. But that was a lot of fun. Something different that nobody else kind of got part of. So yes, he was recognized, and it was one of those deny. But no, everything went smoothly, and actually ended up with 2 front row tickets to the concert, so I was pretty happy.
We've had some interesting guests through Swim Across America. We've had gold medal Olympians from the 1996 Olympics, the 2004 Olympics, the 2016 Olympics. We had Ryan Hell's been back twice already, who was famous, a YouTube sensation for crying on the stand when his relay team won with Michael Phelps. And he was only like 18 years old when that happened. So as far as the guests that we've experienced, it's some of the Olympians and some of the national figures in swimming who've traveled here for Swim Across America and have just loved swimming the lake and just been wowed by the whole place.
Yeah, if I'm asked what could be added to this development to make it any better than it is, I'd have to really think hard on that, because it is so awesome right now. What do you do?
I enjoy working with Charlie and Chip. I think they're both have taken Ed's and Warren's vision and grabbed it by the horns, and I think you're going to see that continue down the road.
So let's head down to the historic log cabin.
Let's go down to the historic log cabin.
I kind of feel like I was a buffer between the two of you at certain times, and I think that's kind of how it was in the early years too, with Les, Dad, and your father. That there was somebody who was a little bit of a mediator at times.
There's always a lot of creative tension.
There was. That's what happens when you have a lot of creative minds all at once, and they don't really intersect well. So.
Wow, and you had this giant canvas. It'd be pretty easy to say, well, let's take it this way. Oh, let's take it that way.
I think that's where we've had, your father asked me at one point, he goes, how do you think you're going to get along with Charlie long term? I said, well, we pretty much agree on most things. Really, probably 99%. So.
Yeah, you're rarely wrong.
I know. And I appreciate that you realize that.
So, and I'm never wrong.
You're
so
right.
There's that 1%.
So there is 1%. We're 1%ers.
Yeah, that's perfect.
How do you think our kids will get along?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
This is just a microcosm of what Innsbruck is. It was a project started by our fathers that just grew and grew into a great community. It's odd to think that just how fortunate we are. It started with a master plan saying this is going to be done in the 70s. And here we are 50 years later, several thousand acres later, and it's probably the best it's ever been, and not as good as it will be.
Well, it's rare too that original developers are still in that business 50 years later, and developments haven't changed hands, especially the character and integrity of the development. So we've got a lot to be fortunate for.
It wasn't always easy.
Well, it may not be in the future either. So. One day at a time, right?
Innsbruck has grown exponentially. It's changed in so many ways since 1975 when we came in. But if you go off on a gravel road and you drive up and you go off to a deserted beach or take a walk down one of those white gravel roads through the woods and see the chalets, you still can feel like you're right back there at the beginning, and you still feel the essence of what Innsbruck is, I think, which is a retreat from the world as well as a community on itself. And it's so much more now. It's got so many activities. It's got so many neighborhoods, if you will. But the spirit of Innsbruck is the same. It's still there. It's still
unchanged.
intact. And as long as that stays that way, this will always be a magic place.